Hello, welcome. Come on in. We are live. So, welcome everybody. Come on in. We are live. Welcome to our 30-day. Why am I singing? I don't know, y'all. I'm just excited. So let me not sing because you all may turn off by now. So, welcome to our 30-day challenge. We are advancing on a purpose. And so, let me give you a little background. We are going live 30 days straight. And that's because I want you to have the skills, the knowledge, the information to advance on purpose. And so each day we're talking about something different. As a matter of fact, we're going to be talking about a little bit about performance, a little bit about conduct for the next couple of days. So stay with me, bear with me. It's not everyone's most favorite subject. So I'm going to do the best that I can for you all. And listen, if you missed any of the sessions, they are live on or the replays. You can catch them on Facebook, on MDW Solutions, that Facebook page. You can also catch them, catch the replays on YouTube. So wherever you're watching this from, you will be able to go back and watch those replays. So make sure that you get caught up and they'll be there because this is a journey and we don't just evolve to where we want to be overnight. And so I want to make sure that you have access to that information. So today, we are exploring something that's overlooked despite being an essential skill. We will discuss how to differentiate between misconduct and performance with your team. And so it's an important skill set, and we don't talk about it enough. And if you're not definitely not in leadership, it's really not talked about it unless you're actually receiving it most of the time. So we are going to make sure that we break these things down. Being able to distinguish between these two things is not just a little skill. It's necessary and it can impact the overall work environment. When it comes to misconduct, when it comes to performance, it can affect your team's morale and the trajectory of your career. So before we dive in, let's go ahead and do a roll call because I was getting ready to dive in, y'all, because this is like near and dear to my heart, but I'm also recognizing it is not near and dear to everybody. So, if you are catching this live or catching the replay, please let us know your name. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Again, whether that's live, whether that's the replay, because we want to be able to acknowledge you and also let us know I am doing this so you can advance on purpose. Each day, again, going live and dropping those nuggets for you so that you can take and you can practice. And again, you'll hear me say a lot of times you can practice the skill at work, but you can also practice these skills at home with your family, with your friends, so that they can truly become a part of you. And so, if there is something resonating with you, please let us know. If there's a question that you have or something that we haven't hit, let us know that as well. I will be going back through the comments. My team is going through the comments. So please reach out and let us know. Let us know what's resonating. And if you have a story, let us know that too. Okay. So if you've been with us, you know I generally tell a story. And if you're curious about my why behind why am I doing all of this, please go to day one and catch that replay. But in general, when we're talking about stories, they help us. They show us where we are, they show us where we can attain, they also show us what we shouldn't do. And so that's why we tell stories. And so I'm going to give you a really quick one. And actually, it's really just it's probably something you've seen in the workplace, and I'm not going to use names for this. So let's just say we have this young lady who is a mid-level manager, and she has this high performing team, but she notices that there is a person on this team that's starting to miss deadlines. And at one point, this person seemed to be very engaged, and all of a sudden, ah, this person is not so engaged. They're struggling. And again, like they're missing meetings, missing deadlines. And so the manager is like, I bet you this is a performance issue. Now, the manager didn't dissect anything, didn't look at what was going on behind the scenes. The manager just said, well, you're missing deadlines. You aren't engaged. You're missing meetings. Ah, it must be performance. And so the manager kind of gave the employee this pep talk. You know what? I noticed that you missed a couple of deadlines. Well, this is what you should do. How many of you have seen this in the workplace where people are just coming at you? This is what you should do. No one's stopping to say, what's going on? How are you doing? Just saying. And so this manager gives this great, or what this manager thinks is a great pep talk, right? But nothing happens with the employee. The one-on-one conversation didn't really go anywhere. And so what was going on behind the scene was the employee was feeling harassed. The employee was dealing with this situation with another employee, which in turn not only affected the work, but it affected that employee's mental health. It affected so much more. And yes, did it affect her performance? Obviously, but there was just so much more to the story than, oh, this is a performance problem. And so, this a manager making this mistake, making this assumption. How many of you out there are tired of people making assumptions about you or about things that you see in the workplace? And so, this was not really seriously the performance issue. It was such a deeper issue, a deeper dive. And once, or if the manager would come to understand that, the story would be, hey, let's step back. Let's actually see what's going on in this employee's world. Let's have a conversation. And guess what? Let's have more than just one conversation. Let this conversation not be just one sided as well. And so, when we're talking about misconduct and performance, it goes just beyond the mere fact that something happened. It's so important that you dig deeper, that you use a different skill set to bring out this information. And so for today, we are going to identify signs and symptoms and really look into like an overall what's going on with your team. But before I do this, let's define performance, let's define conduct. So, when we're talking about performance, performance issues pertain to an employee's ability to complete their job task to expected standards. So it relates to the quality, quantity of work an individual produces. Now, conduct issues refer to behavioral concerns, violation, maybe workplace policy, ethics, norms. It's about how an individual behaves in the workplace rather than the work output. And so, the core of vigilance, when we're thinking about this, being a vigilant leader is more than just keeping a watchful eye on tasks and deliverables. It's about being in tune to the undercurrents. What's happening really truly with your team? What's going on with the dynamics? Each team member is they're uniquely their own person, and because of that, we're talking about different behaviors, different attitudes, outputs. And so all of those things will actually literally make up your team. It'll make up the dynamics of what's going on. It's going to give you your overall health. And so when you, the leader, is vigilant, you don't just see the outcomes. You're going to start to notice patterns. You're going to notice deviations that lead to these outcomes. And so when we're talking about performance issues, let's go over a few subtle indicators. So, just like we talked in this story, sometimes it's missed deadlines, sometimes it's low quality of work. So, when we're talking about low quality of work, maybe there's a dip in the quality, and maybe it's not so measurable, but you can start seeing where it's inadequate resources, lack of clarity, or maybe it's some type of personal struggles that you may see. And a vigilant leader seeks the narrative behind the decline in quality. So it goes really past, okay, there's a decline, but what's the why behind that decline? And then you can also see from employees, you'll see disengagement. And so disengagement doesn't always scream, ah, I'm disengaged. It doesn't always show up like that. Sometimes it's a team member speaking less in meetings. Maybe they're a little bit hesitant to share ideals, or it's just slowly withdrawing. It's the silent distance that grows, and only a vigilant leader can catch it before it turns into this big, huge issue. Misconduct, the behavioral red flags. Let's talk a little bit about what those may look like. And so, when we're talking about misconduct and red flags, we're talking about unprofessional behavior. And now, let me say this, each work environment, maybe just I'll give you extreme contrast. So perhaps if you're in the military, your environment may be a little bit more stringent than someone who is working maybe retail. Let's just say that if you're working retail, maybe it's not going to be as stringent as the military. So when we're talking about behaviors, also take this with a grain of salt. But generally, unprofessional behaviors deal with misconduct. Unprofessionalism isn't just about etiquette breaches. It could be more of a deeper discontentment. It's a mismatch of values or external pressures influencing workplace behavior. It's not just the what, but it's still the why it's manifesting. It could be a breach of policy. Policy breaches aren't just procedural violations, they can be indicators of, again, like a misalignment between the individual and the company. It could also be that maybe they don't know what the policy is, but those are things that you'll find later. Sometimes it could be someone's taking a shortcut, and that could in turn be misconduct. The key again for all of this is to understand the reason behind the breach of policy. You have things like harassment. Harassment can be done in many forms. And it can a lot, well, obviously, a lot of times people try to conceal it, and it leaves your victims just powerless. So it's not just about identifying overt signs, because those generally, we can see those from a mile away. but it could be those things that you don't see when we're talking about we must make sure that we're creating an environment where people do feel safe. And actually, while we're talking about this, it literally just dropped into my thought process. A great example, and I'll use myself, is once I was working. Oh, and I'm sitting here thinking, my husband is probably going to say, there's something else I didn't know about you. So once I was working, and let me tell you, when we're talking about harassment and how it can be subtle and how you may not see it, I was literally working, and I had a gentleman, and I say gentleman loosely. I had a gentleman come up to me, and he was just like, what would I do, or what would you do right now if I could, like, he was literally like, let's see, he was like literally like this. What would you do if I kissed you right now? And I was mortified. And then I had a couple of more things like that happen with this gentleman that's just like this. So I say that to say his behavior was definitely unprofessional, borderline harassment for sure. And so those are the things that you want to make sure as a leader that you're looking out for the people that you have charge over. And so let's move on to sorry about that, differentiating between the signs. While there might be overlaps in the manifestation of performance issues and misconduct, their roots are very distinctive. Performance issues are often about a person's capability. Do they have all their resources? And again, are they in alignment with the role? And when we're saying like alignment, and especially like for performance, we're talking about, and again, I'm going to use extreme examples. Did you hire a mathematician that doesn't have a degree and is not very good at math? So it's that. So when we're talking about alignment with the role, you want to make sure that the person is in line. Do they truly have all the qualifications needed for that position? Performance issues are, again, just about that, the capability, resources, and alignment. In contrast, misconduct stems from behavioral patterns, personal values, and interpersonal dynamics. Recognizing this distinction is a pivotal understanding for a leader. It's so crucial. And I'll give another quick example. And that example is, and this was years ago. I was working and I didn't understand. There was this young lady, and a younger lady, young lady, late all the time. When she showed up, but you would work her hind parts, as some would say, off, but she was always late. And it was just like, okay, you do know that we have a policy about this. And one day I literally had to have a conversation because I couldn't understand in my mind. And we're talking about 20 years ago. In my mind, I don't look like I'm that old. But in my mind, I'm like, why is she's such a great worker, but how can I help her to get to work on time? And so I was having this conversation, and come to find out, I just asked, hey, well, what's going on? And she's like, I don't understand. What's the big deal? My mom works for the government and she's late all the time. And so when I tell you, that illuminated my thought process, because I understood her fabric was, I saw my mom do this every day when I grew up. So why is it a problem if it wasn't a problem for her? And that helped us to really get to the root, and then to help to correct that behavior. And so It's so important to understand the context when we're talking about it and knowing the difference between the symptom and a cause, because I could have easily just wrote her up, but we wouldn't have gotten to the root or the heart of what's going on. And so, for time's sake, let's talk about choosing the appropriate response. So, after identifying and understanding the concept and what's behind it, the final step is going to be what's your appropriate response. So, for performance issues, this may mean training. It could mean this employee needs additional resources, or perhaps maybe you restructure the team. Although that would probably be one of the latter things that you do, but it's an option. For misconduct, this may require disciplinary action, and just depending, because different places have different rules. So whether it's a disciplinary action, whether there are other legal steps that may need to be involved, the key is to make sure that you're tailoring your response to the type of issue you're dealing with, and really understanding each person and trying to get to the root of whatever situation that you're dealing with. And let me tell you, day 1 through 12 is why we're here at day 13. So if you're doing those things that we talked about during day 1, day 5, day 10, and so forth, when we're at this stage and really talking about performance and conduct issues, those things will allow you to be able to get to the root of the problem. That employee, I'm not saying that it's a fail safe, but in general, that employee is going to be able to let that guard down to tell you this is what's happening, this is what's going on. And so all of these things are definitely, they play in harmony to getting to the root of the problem. And so I have some great news, you all. Great news, great news, great news today. For those that are already in our Facebook group, you know, because you've seen it, is gift giveaway time. So I am thrilled to announce that as part of this 30-day challenge is we're giving away gifts. And so we give away a gift, one gift once a week. The caveat is you have to be in the Next Level Progression Tribe. So please make sure that you take a picture of this screen, join the tribe. Listen, I have made sure that these gifts are going to help you. I can't cover everything, I just can't. And so I have curated gifts just for you. So please make sure that you join our Next Level Progression Tribe. And again, you can use that QR code, or you can search Facebook, but the easiest thing to do is just to go ahead and use that code. And so, please, you want this gift. A lot of times, and this gift is going to focus around people that have one particular problem with saying no. And so this is going to help you. It is going to get you from moving from one place to the next, so you can say no without even having a serious care, and you'll be able to start prioritizing yourself. And so you want that gift. So let's wrap up. Leadership isn't just about setting a vision. It's not just about motivating your team. It's also about understanding the nuances of human behavior. No, you don't have to be a psychologist or anything like that, but you do want to be able to see your employees for who they are, know how to respond appropriately, and distinguishing between conduct and performance. It's a skill, and it's a skill that you really need to be able to master and achieve. And so, when you do this, you help to create an environment where employees can thrive, and you create an environment where you can stand up and feel good about how you lead and how you lead your people. Also, when we're doing this well, it increases employee morale. It helps to enhance the productivity, and it really truly contributes to a more inclusive work environment. So, understanding this as a leader, it prepares you for you to advance on purpose. And so I thank you for your attention today. And I'm going to end with a quote. And that quote is: "The function of leadership is to produce more leaders, not more followers." So please join me tomorrow for more insight and great nuggets, because it is my goal for you to move up in your career. You deserve to advance on purpose. My name is Miranda Denise Watson, and I help mid career women level up to executive level positions.